So, here's the thing, Yellow. Brow isn't the real mastermind behind the New West. You know that jolly, almost goofy-looking Maitreya who's been guiding you forward? Yeah, turns out, behind that ever-smiling face hides an ambition beyond anything you can imagine. Now, picture this. A round, headed little kid, glancing around, looking for a place to belong, only to realize there isn't one. So, what does he do? He finds a random rock, molds himself into the form of Maitreya, and from there, well, you can guess the rest. Game science wasn't even trying to be subtle here. They straight up tell us this kid is Maitreya, and that hints at something much bigger. It means that among all the deities and Buddhas of the heavens, there was no place for him. As you journey through the New West, every Yaogua you come across, they're either monks devoted to Yellow Brow, or refugees from the fallen kingdom of Yuksha. And then we get to the portraits of red-haired Yoksha, where it states, Mian was surrounded by numerous arhats, and was beheaded. Yeah, the kingdom of Yuksha, wiped out by Buddhists. And just because the kingdom of Rakshasa shared the same origins as Yoksha, they too were doomed to extinction. That alone tells you everything. The so-called divine beings, they play by their own ruthless rules. So, why is the New West willing to take in the survivors of Yoksha and Rakshasa? There's only one possible answer: Maitreya is backing them. And that subtly hints at something huge. Even though Maitreya and Tathagata are both from Mount Lingshan, behind the scenes, they are not as harmonious as you might think. Now, moving forward, you finally meet the keeper of the New West. He leads you to a bitter lake, and you'd think he's helping, but nah, not a single word out of his mouth is true. He tells you the thing you're looking for is inside that little temple in the lake, and the owner of this place isn't around, so hurry and take it. Total lies. The truth, what you need, is actually beneath Bitter Lake, and that so-called absent owner, yeah, they're right there. That tells us something crucial. The keeper was already in league with Yellowbrow or Maitreya. But wait, wasn't he appointed by the Celestial Court? That only proves one thing: Yellowbrow and Maitreya completely control the New West. It doesn't matter if you're from Mount Lingshan or the Celestial Court. This place is off limits to outsiders, and that explains why, after Yellowbrow recruited Kang-Jin Star, the Celestial Court didn't even react. Because here, in the New West, even they have no power. A small child, draped in yellow robes, steps out from the temple. At first glance, he looks exactly like Maitreya. But we all know the truth: this is Yellowbrow, an imposter in disguise. And here's the thing, he's doing this right in front of Maitreya himself. Now, are we really supposed to believe that Maitreya doesn't know, or that he lacks the power to stop him? No way. There's only one explanation. Maitreya allowed it. He let Yellowbrow operate as his shadow hand, his enforcer in the dark, handling the kind of business that couldn't see the light of day. But what kind of business could be so secretive, so forbidden, that even Maitreya had to be this careful? That brings us to one of the most oppressive places in all of Blackmyth, the Pagoda realm. After defeating the anti-Jin dragon, we're dragged underwater, struggling, fighting, desperate to break free. And when we finally surface, we're met with a terrifying sight: Kang-Makak, wings spread wide, then slash, one strike, and everything goes dark. When we wake up, we're inside the Pagoda realm, a wasteland of corpses, towering prayer wheels, spinning ceaselessly, reaching into the sky. And then, at intervals, a piercing, sinister sound. Doesn't matter if you're a god or a Yaogwai, this sound devours life itself. It drains vitality, twisting everything it touches into bloodthirsty monsters. Then come the Lantern Wardens, cold, merciless, and fair. They don't discriminate, they purge anything that escapes its cell. Defeat them, and you'll notice something strange. Each one drops over 1,000 will, and all around the prison, will, scattered like dust in the wind. The cosmos begets life, and life begets will. This amorphous essence delights all, and serves as a currency across realms. Now, do you see it? This place isn't just a prison, it's an automated will harvesting machine. First, the sinister sound forces all living things into a frenzy, making them slaughter each other. Then, the Lantern Wardens sweep in to collect the will. As long as new souls keep pouring in, the cycle never ends. And those endlessly grinding prayer wheels, the ceaseless burning flames. This isn't just a prison, it's a massive alchemical furnace, a place where life is refined into pure will. That's the true purpose of the Pagoda realm, and the job that Maitreya entrusted to Yellowbrate. Dirty work that could never be exposed. In the Pagoda realm, the Destined One crosses paths with Prince Zhong. Now, this guy, he's a disciple of Bodhisattva Goxiewang, a master renowned for his sheer combat prowess. And yet, despite all that strength, he stood by as his disciple and his 4 generals met their end, here some driven to madness, others outright perishing, powerless. That alone says volumes about the sheer terror of the Maitreya faction. Even another Bodhisattva could do nothing but swallow this bitter pill. After leaving the Pagoda realm, the Destined One makes their way to the Golden Arms Bowl. After taking down Kang-Jin Star, they finally reunite with Beiji. Together, they travel atop the Turtle General, reaching the north shore of the Bitter Lake. Now, these two, the Turtle General and the Snake General, weren't just bystanders. They had once taken part in a siege against Yellowbrow. Portraits recall that moment, but Yellowbrow unleashed both a 10-tailed goldfish and the Apramana bat to engage the generals on water and land, respectively. The battle was fierce, evenly matched. Yet now, one is too afraid to resurface from the depths, while the other has been hacked into unrecognizable pieces, and yet no one dares to voice resentment. That's fear. Fear of Maitreya. Up in the mountain courtyard, the Destined One gets their first real conversation with Maitreya. He's standing there, gazing at the colossal Buddha across from him, and the word he uses, examining, because he's not just looking, he's trying to see, trying to understand. Then he says something odd. He notes how the Buddha's navel is far larger than either of them. Now, why the navel? Why not the head, the hands, any other part? Because in Buddhist culture, the navel represents wisdom. So, translating this into plain speech, Maitreya said, I also want to figure out what the Buddha really intends to do, but his wisdom far exceeds ours. Even I can't penetrate it. And then there's Baji, as always, blunt as ever. Buddha. What Buddha? I don't see any Buddha. To him, the whole thing is a joke. Always has been. Maitreya knows this, of course. But still, he says, let's take a look around. Offer some prayers. Baji, pray, not a chance. So that leaves only one person, the Destined One. And then, Maitreya leaves them with one final line. A heart insincere, the mountain stays shut. A heart sincere, the path reveals itself. That's not just poetic wisdom, that's a demand. If you want to pass through the New West, you must offer your prayers. And who stands at the center of that prayer? Maitreya himself. You're starting to see it now. This entire thing, a test of submission, a trial to see if the Destined One will bow. If you don't leave the New West. Simple as that. And that's why, after the prayer, Maitreya calls the Destined One wise and Baji insincere. And that's why Baji, stubborn as ever, would rather carve his own path than walk alongside the Destined One. Because he refuses, outright refuses to bow to Maitreya. But in the end, the Destined One, they're insignificant in Maitreya's eyes. The one he truly has his sights set on is Wukong. So, you followed the path that Maitreya had carved out and arrived at the Valley of Ecstasy. Along the way, you encountered an ordinary man by the roadside shivering uncontrollably in the cold and repeatedly muttering that he needed fire. Do you remember how you first met him on the north bank of the Bitter Sea, when he was besieged by a horde of Yao Guai? After we rescued him back then, he claimed he'd come here in search of a treasure described in a curious little riddle. Green without, round and sweet. Red within, a summer treat. This time, after you used your ring of fire to warm him up, he told you there was a melon patch in the area patch that, he said, had been planted by the Buddha himself long ago, with the promise that a single bite could extend one's life. In that so-called treasure, it turned out to be none other than the watermelon planted by Maitreya in the original journey to the west. By the time you arrived, the man had been waiting for quite a while, and his portraits were chock full of information. Then he addressed Maitreya, saying, Big brother says, if fate permits, let me have a try at him. Maitreya replied, this one's good, perfectly balanced, neither too ripe nor too unripe. That's when it's at its most flavorful. Now, you might think he was talking about the watermelon, but no, he was actually referring to the Destined One. You see, if the Destined One is too ripe, he'd already have transformed into Wukong and become utterly uncontrollable. But if he isn't ripe enough, then no matter what, his arrival would be futile. That's why Maitreya later remarked, I've already checked him out for you, he's excellent. Yet, the man still wasn't convinced and insisted on testing him himself. At that moment, Maitreya shifted his tone sharply and said, if I don't trust him, then I trust you even less, big brother. And as everyone knows, that big brother is none other than Erlang. According to the records and the portraits, since the matter is personally safeguarded by big brother, there's no room for error. That object tests the very nature of one's heart, and the Erlang has borne that burden alone for years. We can't let his efforts come to naught. This scene alone reveals that Erlang is harboring something both important and bizarre, something that even he might not be able to endure. Maitreya then fell silent, merely watching him. Observing the reaction, the strange man quickly bowed his head in deference, clearly frightened by just one look from Maitreya. From that reaction, it's evident that Maitreya is far from the gentle, smiling figure he appears to be. With another soft chuckle, Maitreya continued, let my disciple pass this trial first, and then we'll talk about the rest. And note when he says my disciple, he means Yellowbrow. The choice of words tells you all about their close relationship, and it also confirms that Maitreya has always taken a remarkably laissez-faire attitude toward Yellowbrow. After all, Yellowbrow can act so brazenly precisely because he has the formidable backing of Maitreya himself. So, is the New West truly Yellowbrow's, or is it Maitreya's? Remember when you first encountered Yellowbrow? He declared, one ended up a corpse, others fugitives. He too took to the shadows. Pathetic. Those journeyers have misplaced their worship. He spoke of the scripture quest mission arranged by the Buddha. Embarking on that quest meant bowing to the Buddha and being put to use by him. In theory, after the journey, the 4 pilgrims should have received the Buddha's protection. Yet, what happened? Some perished, others fled. There are only 2 possibilities. Either the Buddha has lost his power, or his own followers are as dismal as this. That's why Yellow Brow boldly proclaimed, "Why bet on a sutra when one oneself can be a Buddha?" But one must wonder, does that truly express his own conviction? Was it merely a reflection of Maitraya's inner thoughts? After we defeat Yellow Brow, he'll murmur, "They haven't lost. If only I could wield that monkey's relic just once more." But look, does the great sage's relics hidden beneath the lake even stir in the slightest? Meanwhile, Maitraya casually snatches Bajia's rake and transforms it into a fishing rod, effortlessly summoning Hubris Nose. Clearly, Yellow Brow has no real control over Hubris Nose. Only Maitraya can truly command him, while Yellow Brow can merely borrow him under Maitraya's authorization. So, the New West is undeniably Maitraya's New West. Just observe the Keeper of the New West witnessing Yellow Brow sink into the lake without the slightest reaction, all the while busy retrieving Maitraya's bag. It's the smaller figures who know best who the real master is. And as for Maitraya's excuses, as Bajia would say, not even a pig would believe that. In the final scroll after the trial, the image of Maitraya perched atop Yellow Brow's head says it all. But why does he do all this? What is the ultimate purpose behind his actions? And what about Purple Cloud Mountain and that enormous silk thread reaching up to the heavens? What role do they play? Please stay tuned for the next video. Black Myth, Wukong Chapter 4.